This video is sponsored by Alpha Draft, where you can play fantasy CSGO such as ESL One Cologne. If you want to enter some quarterfinals teams, that's what I'll be doing. Go to the link in the description box below if you'd like to do so. Play fantasy esports, potentially win money if you know what you're talking about. Now then, we're into the quarterfinals, the last 8. I think they call it the Elite 8 when it's in the NCAA in college basketball. So these are the 8 teams who are now going to contend to take home the 6th major in CSGO history. I did the redraw, gave you the picks and bans that were likely there, gave you some predictions. I'm now going to do this for these quarterfinal matchups. Because remember, today is just the quarterfinals. After that, it's semis and finals, so maybe I'll come with another video tomorrow about that. But for these ones, we're going to look at each matchup. We're going to look at what are they going to ban against each other, how's the matchup going to go in theory, and we're going to predict a winner as well. I'm going to potentially get a bit in-depth here because I've got time, I've got space that you normally don't have actually when you're on an analyst desk, sadly, because we're not like the International 5 where you have like 20 minutes per game, which is fucking awesome. So the first match, and I'm not going to comment much on what happened in the group stage in general, that can all be done after the event when we have more time to reflect. Matchup number 1, EnVyUs versus Na'Vi. Now, EnVyUs came out of their group with 2 straight wins. They smashed Flipside, and they won an overtime game over Luminosity. Na'Vi narrowly beat Titan, and then got wrecked by Fnatic, and then narrowly beat CLG, but got out of the group. Now, when these two teams play, let's think of how we characterize them before we talk about specifics in this matchup. So as a team, EnVyUs has been a really hard one to nail down, because since they only changed their lineup essentially 2 events ago, they've only played 1 event before this with this new lineup, and that was a fun tournament with maps picked by the fans, and Kenny S and Apex drastically changes what you had with Shocks and Smiths. It's not even like you're putting them in the same roles even. So as a result, we really have to try and forget a lot of the history of EnVyUs, aside from Happy is the in-game leader, maybe some of his tendencies of what he wants to happen will be there. That's the baseline, but then we have to look only at the maps that they've played now to try and get a sense of where they're at. So in the group stage, they played Inferno and Cobble. Now, those are the 2 maps that they've shown the most proficiency on with the new lineup. Inferno was the one where they beat TSM and Mouse Sports on it at IEM Gamescom, and Cobble, they beat TSM twice on it. So this is a map that those 2 seem like ones they definitely want to play. So Inferno and Cobble we're going to put as their 2 best maps, and then we're going to put Cash as their 3rd best map, because they beat TSM on it, they beat Mouse on it. So they won Cobble here, they won Inferno here, Cash is the 3rd. So we're going to say those are their 3 strong maps that we know are strong. Now, we don't really know much about weakness because they've barely lost. They played Train. It seems like they don't want to play that in general, but they're willing to leave it in. They lost to Mouse on that at IM Gamescom. Dust 2 is probably okay. We don't really know where we're at with that because historically Dust 2's always been an EnVyUs map. The French teams in general have always liked Dust 2. And most interestingly, their bans have been identical in the 2 matches they played here. They just banned Mirage and Overpass every time. So those are the 2 maps we know they don't want. So we've essentially got 3 strong maps, 2 middling maps, Train and Dust 2 as the middling maps, and then Mirage and Overpass they don't want any part of. Now here's where it gets really interesting for this matchup, because their opponent is going to be Na'Vi. So I'm just going to do Na'Vi first, the overall view, but you'll see already if you know history of Na'Vi why that's an interesting setup of maps. Because Na'Vi's favourite maps are Mirage, Overpass, Train. Now those are their 3 favourite maps in theory. Now here's what's interesting. Na'Vi have always had this rep of being the super good Train team. They seem to like Train, they leave Train in, they play it from time to time, but actually when you go back and look at their record, it's true because they had the rep of being good and they have been good on it. Teams do tend to avoid them on it, so they don't play it that often, and actually they've lost a surprisingly large amount of those Train games, admittedly to some of the other good Train teams. So interestingly, I actually think that Mirage Overpass, even though Train is there in terms of how we think of the team, I think probably you should boost Cobblestone into that 3rd spot instead of Train, and Train should become more of a questionable pick. So for me, the 3 strong maps should be Mirage, Overpass, Cobblestone, if you're Na'Vi, because Cobblestone particularly, that used to just be their pocket pick that they played as the 4th map or whatever, but they're really good on that actually. They've had numerous big wins on that map. Now, as a 5th map, before we get into weaknesses, Inferno is weird because historically it was always an ally map. It used to be their 3rd map. But nowadays, it's more like a really variable map for them. They can do some good wins, they can wreck people even, and then they lose on it as well. So that one's around like the 5th area. Now, they have 2 maps they just straight up don't want to play. They do not want to play Cash, and they do not want to play Dust 2. Those are just 2 maps. They get out of there. We do not play these maps. Historically, they used to be really good on Dust 2. It used to be one of their best maps. Guardian used to wreck on it every time. They just don't play it now. They hate it. They try to get away from it as much as they can. And Cash is always their ban in tournaments. That's their first ban in every tournament when you go and look at series and what they've banned. Now, when you talk about the matchup of these 2 teams, immediately you can see where there's going to be a really interesting mix-up in terms of people banning strong maps of the other team. Because like I said, EnVyUs is banning Mirage and Overpass. They're the 2 strongest maps of Na'Vi. I think Na'Vi is the best Overpass team in the world. They've lost to it at Virtus.Pro and teams like that, but I think they're the best on it. So in theory, EnVyUs want to get at least one of Na'Vi's strongest maps immediately out the door with their ban. Meanwhile, if you're Na'Vi, you don't want to play Cash, you don't want to play Dust 2. Well, we know Cash is one of the ones that EnVyUs likes. And since EnVyUs likes Inferno and Cobble, Cobble's one that you kind of like. Inferno, not really, but it's at the bottom of your priority there. Of the 3, you're thinking it has to be a Cash ban. Na'Vi always ban Cash anyway, so I think the bans here are quite obvious. Like, to me, when I think about it, EnVyUs is banning Mirage and Overpass in this tournament so far. Na'Vi so far has banned Cash and Dust 2 every time. So both teams have just banned the same 2 maps every time. No change, depending on opponent even. Now, in the tournament, Na'Vi has played Overpass, has played Inferno, has played Cobble. So they've shown they're willing to potentially play Inferno, potentially play Cobble. So they might be willing to play Cobble, obviously. It's a strong pick for them. EnVyUs, strong pick for them. I'm thinking, remember, here's the thing. Remember, when we do pick ban now, we're not banning 2 maps now, okay? What we're banning now, because it's the best of 3 series, unfortunately, I won't go over a massive rant, but because we use this garbage 3rd map random selection, it means in this tournament, unlike others, all you do is ban 1 map each, then pick 1 map each, 3 maps remain, and a computer instantly decides randomly one of those maps. Terrible system. But as we break this down, we've got to keep it in the back of our mind. So I'm assuming EnVy's pick. By the way, I'm just going to assume for the sake of it that the higher seed is going to pick in each situation here, because I mean that's usually I think how these things work. But it shouldn't matter that much when you consider the system. Anyway, I'm going to assume that what EnVyUs do, since the maps they don't like is Mirage and Overpass, I'm assuming the map they should ban is Overpass. Because of the 2, they haven't been playing Mirage and Overpass, but historically they weren't an Overpass team. I don't think it's a map they want to play. Na'Vi, I think, is the best in the world on Overpass. They're a real threat there. So I think that's an obvious ban for EnVyUs, Overpass. Now Na'Vi, I think this is quite an easy ban. Because remember, the 3 strong EnVyUs maps, Inferno, Na'Vi don't mind playing it. Cobble, Na'Vi love this map. Cash, Na'Vi never play this map. Na'Vi always ban this map. This is the first ban for Na'Vi. Easy ban, right? Cash ban for Na'Vi. Now, EnVyUs, I think with what's left, Inferno, Cobble, that means I think EnVyUs, at this point, should be picking Inferno. Even though it's an okay map for Na'Vi, in theory, it's going to be EnVyUs' best map, or one of their top 2 maps. So that's a pick for them. Solid one there. They've got a good chance to win on this map. That means that I think Na'Vi, who are left with a chance, remember, what can they pick here? They could pick Train, but they have lost a lot of times on that. They can't pick Overpass, it's out. They could pick Mirage, strong map for them. EnVyUs don't play it. EnVyUs has been banning it, but EnVyUs can't ban it because they banned Overpass. Or they could play Cobble. Very strong map for strong map for Na'Vi, but also a really strong map for EnVyUs. The obvious choice is Mirage, right? So I'm thinking Na'Vi pick Mirage. So we've got pick Inferno, pick Mirage, and then 3 random maps. We've got Train, Cobble, Dust 2. Train, we don't know anything about it basically with EnVyUs, aside from they played it against. They don't ban it, but they played it against Mouse and lost it at IEM, so we're thinking they wouldn't want that to come out. Na'Vi's lost it a bunch as well, but they are historically known to be good on it in theory, so they probably don't mind that one. Cobblestone, both teams really good on it. I think this would be the dream, is if Cobblestone comes out 3rd map, we'd have a really sick series. And Dust 2 as the decider. Na'Vi don't like it. We don't really know what EnVyUs think about it. They don't really have to play it much, but historically they were good on it. I think that would be the more up in the air one. Train, I think, would be bad for EnVyUs. Cobble, awesome one for both. And Dust 2, I think, would be like middling area as well, with a slight edge to EnVyUs. So who do I think is going to win this series? Now here's where it gets interesting. Because in terms of who I think the better team is, I think Na'Vi is the better team. I think they rightfully are where they are in my rankings, number 2 in the world. I think this is a really, really good team. But when you look at the pick bans and you look at who they're playing, I actually think EnVyUs is getting a lot better chance in the series because of the pick bans and the matchup stylistically, not because of how good EnVyUs is as an overall team. I think Na'Vi's a better overall team. And what I mean by that is, so Envy is going to be picking Inferno. Now, historically, that has always been a good map for their team. It's a very good map for them now. It's not a great map for Na'Vi, and Na'Vi can be good on it, but has shown problems. So I'm actually going to assume EnVyUs would win that map. I think they will win the opener if it's Inferno. Now, Na'Vi picks Mirage. Now, we don't know anything about EnVyUs on it. Na'Vi, I think this is the right pick if they pick it. If they pick Cobble, they're really gambling, even though they're very good on it. I think Na'Vi will win Mirage. So now it's going to come down for the series, because I think it's going to be 2-1 as to who's going to get the last map. So I'll do one for each map. If it's Train, I'm going to assume Na'Vi wins it, but I think it would be really close. If it's Cobble, here's the thing. Now, this is where it gets fucking hard, because EnVyUs is good on Cobble. This is one of the ones they've been strong on. But I actually think that Na'Vi has like some real strength on that map. Like they're just it's the diversity of teams they can match up on that map with. So I think Na'Vi would win Cobble. So at the moment, let me think who have I got at the moment. I've got Na'Vi slightly winning on Train, Na'Vi winning slightly bigger on Cobble. I think they're going to win that, I'm fairly sure. If it goes to Dust 2, I actually think on Dust 2, that's the hardest because I don't really have any data from EnVyUs, but I think that that's one where EnVyUs could win the series. So since I've got 2 of the 3 going to Na'Vi, I'm going to say Na'Vi wins this series 2-1 and moves on to the semi-final. Next matchup, TSM versus Kinguin. Obviously, this is like a dream matchup for TSM because you really thought like, oh, we might be placing Cloud9 here. This could be difficult. Now you're facing Kinguin. So let's look at TSM. Their maps they want: Mirage, Inferno, Dust 2, and then as a 4th one, because they do have a large map pool, probably Cache on the outside there. The only maps they don't want, in theory, are actually ones where you're going to see how deep TSM's map pool is. In theory, they don't want Cobble. They lost to EnVyUs on it twice at IEM. They went to overtime with SK on it, who aren't a particularly good team, but are good on that map. If we're talking about Overpass, they rarely play Overpass, but they can be good on it. They have had times when they're good on it, like they haven't had to play it very often, and they very rarely play Train, but they've won the last 3 times they played it online, and they have been good on it. This is how insane TSM are. Basically, they only have one map that realistically you can call a bad map, which is Cobble, and that's the one that way back they beat Fnatic, the best Cobble team, on at Fragbite Masters in the final on the opening map. So that's their worst map. That's how deep their map pool is. Realistically, they can play with 6 of the maps and just ban the 7th anyway. Now, that's in line with what they're doing ban-wise. They've banned Cobble twice, so that's the one they don't want to play. They're getting that out of there. They banned Cache once, but that was specifically because they were against Renegades, and that's a map that in theory everyone was hyping. This is Renegade's best map. They want Ras. So I think that's a specific target ban there, not a TSM weakness ban. And because obviously TSM then played it against NiP and smashed NiP on it. Then the other map they banned was Train, because like I said, they don't play it, don't have to play it often. They did play it at this tournament. They played it against Renegades. They were willing to play Renegades on it. Renegades not a team famous for it, and they beat Renegades reasonably comfortably. So the obvious area we want to go in if we're TSM is we want to be on maps like Mirage, Inferno, Dust 2. Cache maybe, depending on the opponent. We definitely want to get away from Cobble. Now go over to Kinguin. They want to be on Dust 2. In the group stage they played Overpass, Dust 2 twice. Now they want to be on Dust 2. They beat Immunity on it. I mean, that's not much obviously there. They beat Cloud9 on it, and in the past they've beaten Dignitas on it. So that's a map they really want to go to. That's in theory maybe their best map they want to head towards, especially because a lot of teams are going to leave that out. Inferno is one in theory you'd think they'd want to play. That's the one they beat Na'Vi on at Face It Stage 2 in the group stage. Didn't have to play it here. Teams mainly banned it against them as far as I can tell. Let me see. Yeah, 2 teams banned it against them, so teams know that that's a strong one. And as a 3rd strong map, we're going to go ahead and say Cache. We're going to say Cache because that's the map they beat Virtus.Pro on. They didn't have to play it here, and interestingly, only one team banned it against them, which was Immunity. Now, they never play Cobble. It's not a map they play. Just never play it. I think they might have actually never played it ever. In fact, I think they haven't. And they don't play very much Train. So their problem is, at the moment, let's see, we've got those 3 strong maps. We've got these 2 customs they don't play. And then we've got 2 maps that are like in the middle. Like who the fuck knows? So their bans for this tournament, 3 Cobble bans. Every time they've banned Cobble. 2 Overpass bans. They don't particularly play that. And then the one that I haven't mentioned so far, Mirage. So they're the 3 obvious maps they don't want: Cobble, Overpass, Mirage. Now, when we describe the teams we're facing here, Mirage, really strong TSM map. So if you're worried about that potentially if you're Kinguin, it's a really strong map. TSM, not known to be strong on Cobble, themselves ban Cobble. They're only, in theory, weak map. Now we've got an interesting matchup here, because neither team wants to play Cobble, but does either team want to waste a ban on it, knowing the other might ban it? There's where it gets really interesting. Because if I'm TSM now, I usually ban Cobble. I don't want Cobble out of all the 7 maps. Cobble's the only one I don't want. I can play all the others. I'm actually going to gamble. This is what I'm going to put through my mind. If I'm TSM, I'm actually going to go ahead and gamble that Kinguin have to ban Cobble. And they have banned Cobble more than me, and they've never played Cobble on LAN. So I'm going to gamble that they will ban it, and I'm not going to ban Cobble. If I'm TSM, I'm going to ban Cash. Now, that might sound crazy. That's your 4th best map, right? Why would you ban Cash? Because here's the beauty of it. Remember the 3 maps in general that the guys from Kinguin aren't playing. Is Cobble, Overpass, Mirage, and they don't really play Train. So there's the 4 maps they don't really play. Well, they're going to have to ban Cobble, so that leaves Overpass, Mirage, Train. Now, let me think here. Since they ban Overpass, it doesn't matter that I rarely play Overpass, in theory, because it's unlikely they're going to pick it, so we'll just leave that out there, and it's not a threat. And Mirage is one of my strongest maps. Train, I don't really usually play it, but again, they're not going to pick it. So actually, this is a beautiful series for TSM. They can not only get an advantage over Kinguin and pick ban and fuck with them, but they only have 1 map they want to avoid, which Kinguin almost inevitably will have to ban, believe it or not, because Kinguin have never played it. And every other map's left open, and the weaknesses of Kinguin are the weaknesses of TSM. So it's not likely that Kinguin's then going to pick a weakness of TSM because TSM didn't ban it. So instead, Kinguin's going to have to head towards maps that Kinguin's going to have to head towards the maps that TSM love. So TSM ban Cash. I'm assuming Kinguin ban Cobble, which means TSM, I'm thinking, will pick Dust 2. I think TSM's the best Dust 2 team in the world. They're monsters on it versus everyone. Even though, in theory, it's one of the strongest maps for Kinguin, this is an ideal map for you. I think if you're TSM, you pick Dust 2 here. If you're Kinguin, as I just described, you don't really have a lot of choice. You can't play any of the ones that TSM doesn't like or doesn't like much, because they're even worse for you. So you have to pick a strength. You actually have to know that their strengths are our strengths, and we have to just pick a strength in this particular scenario, I think, in terms of how they're going to think. So I think Kinguin will pick Inferno, which again is right into TSM's wheelhouse. Love this map. Thanks for Inferno. First 2 maps are all great for us. Random 3 maps that are left: Overpass, Mirage, Train. On Overpass, Kinguin don't really play it. I think that, and they've been banning it twice at this tournament. They played it at this tournament against Luminosity. The one time they didn't ban it, and they lost it quite big. So that's not a good sign. I think TSM would win this map. This is a good map for them. Not in terms of like good as in one of their best, but against this team, it should be good. They should win that map comfortably. Mirage, I think TSM would murder Kinguin if Mirage comes out. Kinguin better pray Mirage doesn't come out. They'd rather have Overpass than Mirage, believe me. That will be murder. And if Train comes out, Kinguin don't really play it. TSM don't play it often, but TSM have won the last few times. So you see what a beautiful matchup this is for TSM. There's not a single map that they're very likely to play with how this pick ban's going to go that they're not going to like. They're going to be a favourite to a large favourite on every map. Dust 2, they're a big favourite. Inferno, they're a big favourite. Overpass, slight favourite. Mirage, huge favourite. Train, slight favourite. TSM, I don't think it's even going to 3 maps. There's nothing Kinguin can do. Fair play to them for getting this far. If you can beat TSM, hey, you're going to have to do it on their map, so it'll be an amazing upset. But TSM's going to win this series 2-0 and go into the semi-finals and play the winner of the first match. Now, Virtus.Pro versus NIP is a classic matchup. So, VP in the group stage comfortably beat Immunity on Cobble, comfortably beat C9 on Cobble, and they were through. NIP very narrowly beat CLG on Dust 2, got smashed by TSM on Cash, and then smashed Renegades on Inferno. So they play 3 different maps. Now, Virtus.Pro, historically, we always think of Mirage when we think of Virtus.Pro. It's the map that led them all the way to that first major, EMS 1 Katowice, a year and a half ago. It's the map we associate with them. Interestingly, they haven't been playing it that much recently. They're still a good team on it. They don't play it much because people respect ban it against them and don't want to play it against them. They're still really good on it, but they don't play it that often, actually. Interesting to know. Cobble, at the moment, in terms of how they think of themselves, I think they might actually think that Cobble's their best map because they are really good on it. They play it quite often, and I think that's a map they want. Overpass, It's a map that they've quietly been building up this insane record on. They're thrashing bunches of teams on this map. I think this is a good map for them, actually. They can beat Na'Vi on this map, and I think Na'Vi's the best team in the world. That's just a one Kryptonite stylistic matchup for Na'Vi on that map. So Overpass is right up there. For me, Cobble and Overpass are right up there for them. Then you get Mirage. Now, here's how deep the map pool goes for VP, because the key thing about VP is that they're not like super deep on most of the maps. They've got a couple they're really good on, Cobble they're super good on, Mirage in theory they were super good on, but maps like Overpass, Train and Cache, it's more depending on the opponent. They've got more of a deep map pool, they've got more of a wide map pool, but each map isn't as deep in terms of proficiency necessary. So, interesting though, because it means you can fuck around with people in the pick ban, knowing that you can play it depending on what they can't play. So Train, they've been amazingly getting these big wins over Train teams that we think of, Na'Vi, C9, so they've built a little record on that map. Then you go into Cache. Now, Cache is another map that we associate with VP. End of 2014, that was a map... end of 2014, that was a map that they were one of the first to become good on. They've always been at least proficient on it. They almost invented the mid-control approach on T-side, but they've also had really mixed results in it. So they've beaten Fnatic on this map, ESL ESEA Pro League. It's the map that they got in the semi-final, but then they've lost to C9 on it, and they got 16-0 by Kinguin on it. So we're going to put that more towards the bottom of their pool. Now, the only map, because let's see, what have we got there? 3, 5. The only map they definitely do not... actually, I forgot, I've described the others. Inferno, again, that's a really variable one. Historically used to be good. Nowadays, not as much. They're not playing it as much. They sometimes ban it, but they still get wins when they're forced to play it. That's the sick thing about VP. The one map they definitely do not want, VP do not want Dust 2. They've never liked this map. They've never wanted any part of it. And in this tournament, they've banned Dust 2 twice, they've banned Inferno once, and they've banned Cache once. Now, that's depending on opponents, though, because they banned Dust 2 in the 2 games they played. They banned Inferno against Immunity, because that's thought of as one of Immunity's best maps, and they banned Cache against C9, because again, that's probably the best map for C9. So those were just target bans, because remember, because they have a deep pool, or a wide pool, however you want to say it, they're the ones who can choose what to ban depending on the opponent. Now let's go over and look at NiP. Again, the problem with NiP is they haven't had any strong maps. They haven't got one map that you know they're going to win on. They get smashed on some of their strong maps. So they just have a wide map. Well, they don't have a wide map pool. They just have basically 4 maps that they don't mind playing. Cache, Dust 2, Mirage, Inferno. They don't play Overpass. They barely play Cobble, and they barely play Train. So the 3 customs, the 3 most recently added maps, they don't play if possible. Their bans for this tournament are every time they've banned Overpass. They don't play it. Twice they've banned Mirage. In theory, maps sometimes they will play. Depends on the opponent. They banned it before because they were against CLG. That's one of CLG's favourite maps. There's a map CLG upset Fnatic on. And they banned it against Renegades, which is the map that Renegades had just beaten Titan on. So those, I think, are more target bans than NiP not wanting to play it. That is a map NiP will play. And the last ban was Dust 2, which actually is a map that NiP's been playing a lot. They played against CLG, that was the close one. And they only banned when they were against TSM, and that is TSM's best map, and in my opinion, the map that TSM's the best in the world on. So again, target ban. Mirage and Dust 2, their bans, and not because NiP don't want to play them. They do want to play those maps. So thinking of VP, who was strong on Cobble, Overpass, and then after that you can add in like Mirage, Train, Cache. Those are the 5 that you want to kind of stay away from when you're playing them. Well, Mirage and Cache, to that NiP has no problem playing. They don't mind those ones. So assuming I'm going to go ahead and say VP is going to follow suit with the before, their obvious ban is always Dust 2. They're just going to ban Dust 2. NiP have shown they're willing to play it. So VP bans Dust 2. Now if you're NiP, every time you banned Overpass, VP are very strong on Overpass. This should be an obvious ban. You ban Overpass. Now, taking in mind, I've repeatedly criticised, I think Exist is one of the worst I've ever seen at both banning maps and picking maps. He tends to ban maps that like sometimes don't even make sense, like the opponent would have banned that for you, and he tends to pick into the strengths of the opponent. So let's ignore that and assume he's going to do it the way I'm doing it based on what I think of the maps, and I think he should ban Overpass. Now VP, knowing NiP don't play Cobble, don't like Cobble, I think they should be right in there because VP is very strong on Cobble. So this should be a VP pick Cobble. It's the map that they played twice in the group stage. That's also why it'll be an interesting dilemma for NiP because they don't want to play Overpass. They never play Overpass, but they know VP's strong on Cobble. They know VP played Cobble twice, so maybe they go with a Cobble ban. I think they should still ban Overpass. So VP picks Cobble. Now NiP, here's where it gets interesting. Because of the maps that are available, their Dust 2 is gone. Mirage is historically a strong map for VP. Inferno is probably equally good for each team. Each team doesn't want it. In theory, the map NiP want to take here should probably be Cache. It's a map they like. It's a map they want to play. Admittedly, they got wrecked by TSM, so they might be scared of it as a result of that. But it's a map that they've seen people get wins on VP over. Like, that was the map where C9 wrecked them. That's the map that they don't want any part of in theory. So I think that they're going to pick Cache. So the random 3 maps that we're left with is Inferno, Train, Mirage. Now Inferno, I think both teams, it's okay to play. No one's super strong on it. I'd give the edge to VP probably. Train, I think on this one, big edge to VP. Although NiP, interestingly, have managed to play Train. They haven't been good on it, but they've managed to play it quite close. Like, they don't win it, but they play it close to some of these good teams. So that's interesting. So maybe it'll be a win for VP, but not by a large margin, but not by a small margin, but like a decent, a slightly convincing, a 4 to 5 round sort of win. Last map, Mirage. If Mirage comes out, both teams will like to play it. Neither teams are god on it at the moment. I think that should be a solid VP win. So, okay, here's how it's going to go. Map 1, Cobblestone. I'm taking strong VP win here. They will win this map. Map 2, Cache. This is very difficult because VP still have the blueprint and the players to be a strong Cache team. They have lost it a lot recently. In theory, it's one the map NiP's going to want. I'm actually going to give NiP that map. I'm going to say NiP will win that map. 1-1 so far. If the third map is Inferno, I think VP will win a close game. If the third map is Train, I think VP will win a 4 to 5 comfortable win on Train. If the third map is Mirage, I think VP will win a pretty convincing win. So I've got VP winning all the third maps, winning map 1 Cobble, and I've got NiP taking Cache. So 2-1, VP win the series through to the semis. Fnatic versus Luminosity is our final quarterfinal. That wasn't great wording, was it? So Fnatic thrashed eBettle 16-2, Mirage, thrashed Na'Vi 16-2, Inferno, and they were through. We didn't even have to see much of them. Luminosity comfortably thrashed Kinguin, Overpass. They narrowly lost to EnVyUs in overtime, on Cobblestone, and then they narrowly won in overtime on Cobblestone against Flipside. So here's what we think of Fnatic. Fnatic, like TSM, have a crazy map pool. But here's what's fucking insane about the map pool of Fnatic. They don't have a bad map. They don't even have a map like the Cobblestone of TSM, where in theory they should still want to get away from it. They can play every map. So if they really want to, they can purely target to the enemy. And they can even take away Fnatic's strengths, because they have so many strong maps, that they can just do it just to fuck with the enemy's strengths. Because the enemy, in general, is nearly always going to have a less strengths. So they should take away strengths from the enemy, knowing that even the weaknesses of Fnatic will be good against that enemy, potentially. Now, what that means is, Fnatic is good on Dust 2. I think they've surprisingly become really good on Dust 2. They were always good on it, but because some of their other maps fell away and they don't focus Inferno, for example, as much now, I think it's made, actually, Dust 2, to me, one of their home maps at the moment. Cache, always good on. Olaf Meister, if you ever read my article about him, he has so many wins on Cache in big series where he himself just monsters the whole game. He's just the best Cache player in the world. That's definitely a map for them. There's their first 2 definite strong ones. Next up, we have 2 that are like pretty strong for them, which is Mirage. Historically, they've gone back to it when it originally was a great map for them. They went away for it for a while. TSM was beating on them for a while, but they've gone back to it. They're playing it a lot more again. Cobblestone, they were historically the strongest team on it. I think that's now debatable. Other teams are up there with them, VP, Na'Vi, maybe even... Yeah, I think those are probably the teams I'd put in the mix there. So Cobblestone, Mirage, there they go. And then to round out the 5 that I think of as the stronger maps, Inferno. Historically, it was the map they built their dynasty on originally. They were the gods of CT side. They don't play it like that as much. They still play it rarely, but when they do play it, they're good on it still. So 5 maps that they're strong on and they want to be heading towards. Leaves 3 maps left. They've played lots of Train, despite the fact in theory it's the one that normally they would want to avoid. And interestingly, they're actually pretty good on it. Like, it's always close when they play this map. That's another Olaf Meister map on T side. Overpass, again, it's rare they play it, but they're the ones who almost pioneered this aggressive A-site, CT pushing up in the toilets in the long area way of playing the game, where as a result, they're good on this map, actually. They get wins on people on this map who are other good teams. So that is quite interesting in and of itself there. Now, what don't they want? Well, interestingly, the 2 bans that they have are... They've banned Train twice, Dust 2 once, Overpass once. So Train's the one at the moment. They're signaling they definitely don't want. Now let's look who they played though. Because again, these were target bans. eBettle, the only thing we knew about them is that Train was their best map. It's the one they beat Titan on. So that's the map we wanted to take away from eBettle anyway. So that's the target ban against eBettle. And then against Na'Vi, they were famous originally for being the strong Train team. You knew that they were going to do that. So that's the map to obviously pick out against them when you think of all the other strengths that you have. So that one makes sense in and of itself. So historically, Train is not necessarily the one they're definitely going to ban here. I think for them, they're just only going to ban based on the opponent. Now, Luminosity, historical Mirage, that's the one they're most famously associated with. They upset Cloud9 with Shazam on it back at MLG. They upset Fnatic on it at ClutchCon right after. Haven't had many big upsets since then on it. But that's the one we always associate with them. But actually, they've kind of veered away from it in terms of identity. Inferno is another historical map we think of with them. They beat Hellraisers on it. They beat TSM on it at ESL ESEA. But we actually have seen them moving away from that. That's actually a map that they're banning all the time now. Overpass is the third map we're going to put in there because they beat Virtus.Pro on it at the last major. But again, it's not the map they play all the time or anything. They played Overpass against Kinguin here and beat them. And they played Cobble twice in the other two games. So Cobble's a map that apparently now is maybe coming into the mix if they're not playing Inferno. That's maybe what they want in their top 3 maps. They don't play Dust 2 or Cash much at all. Those are the two they don't play. Now in this tournament, they banned Inferno 3 times. Admittedly, they were playing Flipside, EnVyUs, Kinguin. We know that EnVyUs and Flipside want Inferno. So that could be to a degree a target ban, because I do think of Luminosity as one of their best maps is Inferno. Dust 2 bans they gave against EnVyUs, historically a good Dust 2 team, and they gave against Kinguin, which, okay, that's not a bad one actually. We can maybe understand that. I'm thinking, in this particular scenario, that when Fnatic does their ban, as I described before, they don't have to worry about Train if they think it through. Luminosity is very unlikely to pick it. Luminosity may even consider banning it. So don't worry about the Train ban. That doesn't need to be targeted. Now, in terms of something like, well, let's think of what Luminosity have. Here's the thing. If I'm Fnatic, what I'm going to do in this series against a much worse team, when I have the advantage of almost the entire map pool, is, and I don't have to ban the one I usually ban, is I'm just going to go ahead and take away their best strengths so that whatever we play on, I'm stronger on anyway and they're weaker on. So that's what I'm going to go for. So Fnatic should ban Mirage. Always thought of as a strong Fnatic map. They play this map a lot, but historically we think of it as the best map for Luminosity. This is the map that they will have a chance to upset you on. They've even beat you on it in the past on it. It should be a Mirage ban here. Now, for Luminosity, here's where it gets interesting. Because if they were willing to ban Mirage in all 3 of their group stage games, even though Mirage is one of their best maps, Fnatic's famed for their Mirage. So does Luminosity ban Inferno here? I've just said Mirage, haven't I? I meant to say Inferno for the Luminosity one. Does Luminosity ban Inferno here, knowing that if they ban it, Fnatic just ban Mirage, there's our 2 best maps right out of the pool. That's where it gets dangerous. I still think they should, because I think they would get brutalized on Inferno. I think they just have to ban it, and their track record says they do ban it. So I think they ban Inferno. Now, if I'm Fnatic now, instantly I lock in Dust 2. It's not a map that Luminosity plays. They don't play it much. It's a map that at the moment you're really good on against all levels of opponent, and I think you will win this match. And you have the aimers, and Dust 2 is very much an aim-based map. I think this is a map where Fnatic would brutalize them on Dust 2. That means Luminosity for their pick. Now here's the thing. I think their pick of the strong maps they've got left, I think it probably has to be Overpass. It's the one they beat VP on a while back. Yeah, it's not a map they want to play, but of the maps that are available, they can't play Train, so they can't pick that. It's one of the best chances you're going to have to even vaguely get any kind of a weakness against Fnatic. And Fnatic don't play it often, but are good on it. So I'm going to go ahead if I'm them and pick Overpass. I think it's my best chance here. So that leaves us with 3 random maps: Cobble, Train, Cash. When Fnatic plays Dust 2 in game 1, they will win this game. It's Dust 2, so it's harder to predict scores on that one, but it'll be a comfortable win. Map 2, Overpass. Fnatic will win this as well. It will be a 2-0 for Fnatic. Let's imagine it could go to the 3rd maps and do the form on those. Cobble would be a strong win for Fnatic. They would win this quite heavily. Luminosity haven't shown us any proficiency on it. Train, the problem here is, okay, I've said, it's not a map that Luminosity is particularly playing. That should be a decent win for Fnatic. It's not one of their best maps. Decent win. Maybe you have a come close in terms of round. Maybe Luminosity could get a 10, 11 rounds, but it'll be a win for Fnatic. Cash, Problem is Luminosity don't play it much, so that's going to be a really solid win for Luminosity. For Fnatic, rather. So I have Fnatic winning all 5 maps that they would likely play and just winning 2-0 anyway. This should be the easiest of all the semi-finals, I think. This one and the TSM Kinguin one should be the easiest, but this one, in as much as Fnatic should definitely win every map, whereas Kinguin at least has chances on some of the maps, except that the way that the map veto goes. So that means we're going to be left with semi-finals, by my estimations, of Na'Vi versus TSM and VP versus Fnatic. So, great semi-finals. Those are fucking amazing. That's the number 2 seed, Na'Vi, versus the number 3 seed, TSM, in my rankings. And the number 5 seed, VP, who are on a rise though, 1 Sevo, versus Fnatic, the number 1 seed. And what's great about that is, those are 2 classic matchups. Na'Vi TSM was the semi-final of Face It, and VP Fnatic was the semi-final of ESL ESEA. We've seen these matchups repeatedly. They're great matchups. Map-wise, it'll be very interesting. So, depending on what the semis come out as, I'll probably try and do a video tomorrow addressing similarly to them, breaking them down, what happened. And because the semis and the final are tomorrow, if I do a video, I'll have to do semis and then hypothetically I'll probably just do all the permutations of the final, because I'll have to. Anyway, thanks Alpha Draft. If you want to play fantasy esports such as ESL One Cologne, you can go there, description box below.